Hello and welcome to this video on turning an ivy specimen into an informal upright. Ivy is a fast-growing vine that covers about 15 species. Some are more common than others. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have this growing rampant. As a result, we often get rather large sections that have been cut from the parent ivy plant. These are grown on to become possible bonsai. We have several options, with some stock much more straight and difficult than others. For that reason, we will use a smaller specimen that has much more movement. This will be the basis for an informal upright. The larger examples still need time to be cut, shaped, tapered, and grown into a bonsai starter. With this informal upright, we will have a smaller trunk to begin with. To make it work, we will need to plant this trunk at a slight angle. Without doing so, the first branch and rest of the trunk movement will not suit an informal upright. We could be far more creative, but, well, that involves being creative. To make things easy, we placed a rock in the bottom of the pot. Although we lose room for soil, it is much easier than trying to fix it in place with wires and things later on. If you are inclined, you might try hot glue or silicone to try and do this instead. We now add soil and water the plant. This will fix the vine in place, somewhat. This is followed by more wire to secure the vine over the rock and in the soil. We need to do this to ensure that it will not move. Under this, we will also place a plank or other flat solid object that will force the roots to grow wide. More soil, and finally a surface dressing. The wire is oversized, and there is more of it than we would normally need, as we will be growing sacrifice branches, and these will be a problem in the long term without a strong support to hold it in place. The sacrifice branches will get quite wide, and they will put it off balance, trying to force it to shift to one side or the other. The wide root growth will also be useful as it promotes nabari development, which will prove useful later, as once we put this into a larger pot, to further both promote nabari and support its growth in the long term, while it simultaneously removes the need for us to rely on the rock. Next we have the side branches. As with all informal uprights, we will follow the left-right-back approach. Each branch will grow from the outside of the trunk. With that in mind, we must consider how to grow this bonsai and branches to scale. We do not have a lot of branch development at this time. For that reason, we need to force some of the branches lower or higher and try to fuse them to a slightly lower or higher position. This will let us have some branch growth now, it will be in the right place, and it won't look out of place. As the branches grow, we will let them grow out, and the most extreme end will become a sacrifice branch. As it grows out, the weight will cause the branch to droop as well. This will add to the impression of age and thickness to the trunk. While we have growth where we want it, we should deal with the style beyond basic growth habits. That is, we must style both the top of the specimen and the branches. The top of the bonsai in making needs to be moved over ever so slightly. This lowers the trunk top just a little bit, while also letting us grow a branch in the opposite direction. This will form the top or head of the ivy bonsai. By twisting it downwards just a little bit, we give it that appearance of age, as if that part of the tree has gradually fallen down, much like an old person has a much lower head because they are weaker. The branches down the trunk are different, and we need two features. These are movement of the branches and ramification. With that in mind, we need to move the branches. As the branches come out from the trunk, it will snake towards the front of the tree, then towards the back. The branch will need to fall lower as it gets further away. As ivy is a vine, we can get away with not just following this rule exactly. That is why we plan to have some unusual branch styling later on, but not quite yet. We'll rely on that with the lowest branches once they're a little more developed. The branch ramification is the next most important thing we need to focus on, and this involves cutting the branches back to a single pair. Yes, it will lead to the loss of some growth, but we'll only be cutting back the branches towards the top of the trunk at this stage. That is because these are going to be the shortest of branches anyway, and by starting to style them now, we maximize the returns for the rest of the tree. The branches in the middle will be cut back considerably less. That is, if we can find suitable branches. The idea here is to bring back the branches to the largest and most solid section that we can in the middle. The reason we do this is that they have the moderate amount of time and growth potential. Over time, they can thicken, but also we need to be aware of the fact that they need to be approximately ratioed to be in between the very top of the tree and the very bottom. Finally, there are the bottom branches. These need to be left to grow out for now. They need to get long and be sacrificed for the trunk's development. These sacrificed branches will have some growth allowed in the section closest to the trunk. We need this, as the branches will be used as the lowest branches of the final styled bonsai, if possible. For this reason, the early growth will be useful, and will allow some of it to develop out to a point. Beyond the expected branch size, we will remove any and all side or sub-branch development. This will leave only the primary branch to grow all the way out, and that will be what we sacrifice later on. The last feature we need to address early is the leaf size. The original leaves are very big relative to the size of this specimen, and we simply cannot keep them. They will look completely out of place and undermine everything we're trying to achieve. The reduction in foliage size is going to be a challenge, and it's not a challenge because ivy is hard to reduce the foliage size, but because this will be done while trying to grow the ivy. If we waited until the end, we could, in theory, do this very simply, as reducing the leaf size of this particular ivy cultivar is not hard in our experience. Your ivy may vary. The reason we're doing it now is that it's much easier to work and get everything to the appropriate size and figure out where we should make cuts if the foliage is working its way towards what we want in the end. The specimen will need to have the leaves cut from the stem in part, as we slowly work on the tree. We'll start on this once the top of the bonsai has the majority of the branch structure established. That is so we can focus the growth from this part of the bonsai onto other parts instead. By removing the foliage, it will put more leaves into this section, but it will put the growth into leaves, not branches. All the growth that will go into the branches up top gets focused to the middle and then later on the bottom. As you can see, there is still a lot of work to go, but the essential elements are present with what we have available. There is still a need to grow much more, particularly the branch structure, but we can focus on that without any major demands. The trouble will be getting new branches to grow where we don't currently have them, or in some cases having to fuse them or otherwise graft new branches in place. But that may not be the biggest challenge at present. It'll be seeing how well it takes to what we've done now, and if in 6 months' time it is still looking healthy, we can certainly change over to other options and focus on more development instead. For now, it will be a case of seeing how well it responds to what we have done and then adjusting the plans accordingly. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please do post any comments, questions, or suggestions you have below.